When nations carry out military strikes, the language used is rarely the language of violence. Bombings become operations, civilian deaths become collateral damage, torture becomes enhanced interrogation. Throughout history, we have seen these type of events happening. And whenever these events happen, we don't call them as immoral, but rather we call them as necessary or justified. For example, when Europeans colonized various parts of the world, especially countries like India, they called it as civilizing the natives. When you take Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, it was justified as being important for national security. This raises an important question. How do individuals and institutions who commit immoral acts still consider themselves as good, still consider themselves as moral? To answer that question, we need to have an idea about Albert Bandura's theory of moral disengagement, which he gave in the year 1919. What he says is very interesting. He says that human beings, they're generally good people. They have their own moral standards as well. But in some exceptional circumstances, they disengage from their moral standards and commit harmful acts. And they don't have any ounce of pain or guilt when they commit this harmful act. And this is what we are seeing in our personal life. This is what we are seeing all around us as well, where violence is justified in the name of national security and many more things. We will now try to understand the various mechanisms through which moral disengagement works. Firstly, as I told you, we justify the acts. Moral justification for immoral acts. USA wanted to drop the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It justified its actions by saying, by dropping those bombs, they are reducing the length of the war. This is one mechanism. Secondly, apart from moral justification, there is something called as advantageous comparison. I am doing something harmful, I agree, but the other person has also done it. So you're comparing your harmful acts with someone else and you're saying that your harmful act is not as bad as it seems. This you see in the real world as well. There are many people who believe to get ahead in this world, you need to be unethical. They use the examples of various individuals who have done the same thing. Maybe Harshad Mehta, maybe personalities like that. This is what we call as advantageous comparison. Thirdly, there might be displacement of responsibility. You saw this with certain armies in the past as well as in the present. Some of the Japanese soldiers who committed heinous crimes during World War II, they tried to wash away their hands from responsibility by saying that they were just following the orders of their officers, of their commanders. This is what we call as displacement of responsibility. Fourthly, this you observe in government sectors. You want a signature to a file, but when you approach a government department, they try to diffuse their responsibility, the standards of their responsibility by sending you to one department after another department after another department. This is what we call as diffusion of responsibility, where the institution is so big, where there are so many actors, it is very difficult to pinpoint where actually the responsibility lies. Where does the buck stop? It is very difficult to pinpoint that. This is what we call as diffusion of responsibility. Another mechanism that we use in moral disengagement is distortion of consequences. For example, when USA attacked Venezuela and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, they were trying to justify their acts by saying that Nicolas Maduro has compromised on various civil liberties in his own country. So we are trying to minimize the harm by removing him from the equation altogether. That is what we call as distortion of consequences. The last mechanism that we use in moral disengagement is dehumanization and blaming the victims for their own suffering. We saw this in Hitler's Germany, where many people blame the Jews for their own suffering. We also see this when we see instances of rape cases being reported in India. Why did that woman go out late in the night? What was the necessity? Why was she wearing the clothes that she was wearing? Remember, all these mechanisms put together, they make us engage in moral disengagement. Some of you watching this, you might have also been a user of this particular theory in an unknowing manner. Is it not? One powerful tool that we use to engage in moral disengagement is language. Now, if you observe, civilian deaths that happened in Afghanistan because of Pakistani attack, civilian deaths that happened in Iran because of Israel attack, they are often termed as collateral damage. And the tortures which are inflicted on the people that we have detained, USA detained, maybe in Iraq, maybe in Afghanistan at one point in time, it is called as enhanced interrogation. When you use this euphemistic labeling, when you use words like this, you tend to reduce the impact, the pain caused by such moral disengagement. And moral disengagement, it is very pertinent in large institutions, in large countries. We see this happening in and around us. Why should you be aware of moral disengagement? Because when you become aware, you will prevent your cognitive abilities to disengage from the moral standards, and you will also be able to identify when someone is indulging in such type of phenomenon, and you can hold them accountable for their acts of omission and commission. Once you are aware, then you become an informed citizen to take necessary actions. Remember, moral disengagement is not good. It makes you forget that you're a human being with that humanity, and it can make you commit inhumane and immoral acts. Let's not normalize this.